Welcome to Vision MBA. Now guys, in this video, I am going to talk about how to get the cutoff score in last 2 weeks or so. Definitely, we all know, and of course, if you are appearing in the IIFT examination, that the examination is on 24th of January. This video, I am going to give you wisdom. I am going to give you pointers and suggestions that will surely push these scores for you guys. That will surely make sure that if in case by some reason you are unable to get the cutoff score, you are unable to get that magical number to be considered for the next round, of course this video will give you pointers and ideas to get that done or to get that score so that you will be considered for further rounds. Now guys, first thing first, you must understand how many questions are there, what is the marking scheme, and what is the cutoff score for the general category student and also for the reservation. As I said, as I promised, that this video is going to help you to get the cutoff score. So the cutoff score is different for the general category student. It's different for various other reservations. So let's understand that. Now guys, there are going to be 4 sections. Verbal ability English, logical reasoning, of course, we would be getting questions on logic. Quantitative ability, you will be getting questions on mathematics, and GK, general knowledge. Now, why I said this pattern? Not because I am a verbal faculty. Why? Because 35 questions are going to be asked under the verbal section, 30 questions are going to be for the logical reasoning, 25 questions are going to be on quant, and 20 questions are going to be asked in the GK section. So you got the maximum number of questions asked in the verbal section and the least number of questions you will be asked in the GK section. Now let's talk about the marking pattern. You will be getting plus 3 marks for every correct attempt, apart from the GK section. So if you attempt any question right in verbal, quant, logical reasoning, you'll be getting 3 marks for each correct attempt. But then there is a negative marking as well. Before I come on to the negative marking, let's talk about the marking scheme or marking pattern of the GK section. Remember I said there are 20 questions in GK. Yes, there are 20 questions in GK, but for each right attempt you will be getting 1.5 marks. Yes, how many marks you will be getting for each right attempt? 1.5 marks. And of course there is a negative marking. Negative marking is one third of the right marks you, or for the right attempt marks you will be getting. So one third of 3 and one third of 1.5 marks in GK you will be getting if you attempt a question incorrectly. Now guys, IIFT examination is a time bound examination. It means the number of minutes are not that sufficient to attempt each and every question, but then the questions are quite doable. But of course the questions are doable, but the timing is less, so you need to manage your time. Guys, MBA entrance examination is not about being so much intelligent. It is all about managing your resources, and this video is going to help you to manage your resources in these 2 weeks so that you make the cut, you get the cutoff score. Now guys, let's talk about the cutoff for each section. I will be coming on to the cutoff of each section, but then let's talk about the overall cutoff. Now overall cutoff for IIFT examination, out of 300 is the maximum mark you're going to get if you attempt all the questions correctly. That's the maximum score. Out of 300, 138 overall is the cutoff score for the general category. However, for EWS and OBC, economic weaker section, and OBC, the cutoff is 115 marks. It's less. And then for SC, ST and PWD, for these reservations, the cutoff is 89 marks. Once again, I repeat, 138 marks is the cutoff for general category. 115 marks is the overall score I'm talking about, considering and getting or adding all the scores from 4 sections. Of course, verbal, quant, GK, LR. Now, sectional cutoff is also there. Now guys, in IIFT examination there is no time limit that how much time you are going to invest in each section. That is up to you to decide. And of course there is where the trick lies. You need to make sure that you manage your time well. But then there is a sectional cutoff. So I will be going on to each and every section. So in the verbal section, let's talk about the verbal section of IIFT examination. In IIFT examination, there are going to be 35 questions in the verbal section, and the cutoff for general category is 34 marks. Remember, plus 3 for one right attempt, and of course minus 1, one third mark is the negative penalty or the penalty is there if you attempt a question incorrectly. So that means for 34 marks, more or less, you have to target 12 questions correctly out of 35 questions. Of course, you also need to keep in mind that how many incorrect attempts are going to be there, because 34 marks is the overall rough score. 28 marks is the cutoff for the reservation. Now remember, I said for reservation there is a different cutoff score, and definitely there is a different cutoff score for the general category. So 34 marks is for the general category cutoff and 28 marks is for the reservation. Now guys, let's understand what kind of questions are there so that you plan your studies accordingly and you do it. I'm sure you guys must be knowing that already if you're preparing for the IIFT exam. However, there are going to be 4 passages asked, RC, reading comprehension, 4 questions each. So 16 questions are going to be there. On vocabulary, you are going to get around 4 questions. They are around 3 questions on para-jumble, and then vocab based questions are going to be around 7 to 8 questions. So that is the general mix of the number of questions you'll be getting. On the screen, I'm mentioning what kind of questions are there and for how many types of questions are there and what are the numbers for those questions. Now guys, I want to tell you that reading comprehension RC of IIFT examination is easier as compared to CAT examination. In CAT examination, you got inference based question where you have to read, understand the passage and understand what could be the answer. But here in IIFT examination, direct questions are going to be asked. That means directly you can find the answer from the passages. You do not have to worry about being into the depth or being in the shoes of the author. The answers are directly mentioned in the passage. You read, you take the answer, that's it. So guys, RC is going to be quite easy. But then if you want to get the cutoff easily in, of course, IIFT verbal section, you need to focus on 2 things: vocabulary and your comprehension skills. That means reading. Of course, grammatical questions are there. There are around going to be three questions on grammar. But then I'm talking about how to meet the cutoff. So make sure that you read regularly. Now the number of days are less, so I won't be suggesting that you start reading newspapers and you be good in RC. But what you must do, you must attempt those RCs, the RCs that have been asked previously. Whenever you are attempting a mock, after attempting every mock, ask yourself that why you got a question incorrect. Make sure that in these last days you try to attempt the RCs that have been asked previously via mocks or maybe some other way, and try to focus on getting the cutoff of 34 marks. Bank on your strength. If something is making sense to you, that's what you must be doing. But make sure that minimum 34 marks you get in the verbal section, even if you're in a reservation. Why? You try to target a little bit more. Similarly, if you're in a general category, try to target 40 marks. Try to target 40 marks. So even in the worst case scenario, you get 34 marks. That is the cutoff for the verbal section. Now let's come on to the logical reasoning part. Why? Because the number of questions are the second most in this examination. There are going to be 30 questions. So let's talk about the cutoff. The overall cutoff for this section for general category is 22 marks. Around 22 marks if you get, you will be making the cut. But then for reservation, it is 20 marks. It is there on your screen. Now make sure to achieve the sectional cutoff by focusing on your strengths. Make sure that whenever you are attempting questions or you're attempting a mock, you focus on your core areas in which you are good at and try to get at least those many marks. Remember, +3 for every right. So out of 30, you need to get around, you can do the math. So target at least 10 questions to get right in the examination or whenever mocks you are attempting or whatever you are doing. So prepare your strategy accordingly. Now, under the logic section, guys, there are going to be 12 questions, around 2 questions on arrangement, 4 questions, 2 questions, 2 sets, 2 questions, 4 questions and 3 questions on arrangement. You have to arrange the stuff. So that is how it's going to be under the logical section. See, and then guys, on sequential questions, there are going to be 2 questions, sequential, output and puzzles are going to be 2. So basically you focus while preparing on this section, keeping the cutoff in your head, as a goal of yours. Under the DI, guys, you're going to get 4 sets, 4 questions each, and of those 4 sets you'll be getting 2 tables, 1 bar and one line graph. So that is going to be the mix, and Venn diagram questions are also asked. So focus on trying to find ways by practicing to get the answer quickly using the options or elimination method. What I mean to say, when you are trying to get the answers in DI and LR, of course I'm sure you might be getting this information from your coaching institute, or if you're studying online from the free resources available, you will be seeing that options can also help you to find the answer or to make you reach closer to the answer without giving you a trouble of so much of calculation. Maybe 50% of the question you have attempted, but looking at the options you get the idea what is going to be the answer. So try to find those ways in these many days. Focus on your strength and try to get at least these many marks for the DILR section to make the cutoff. Now let's come on to the next section, and that is the quant section. Now guys, under the quant section guys, as I said, there are going to be 25 questions. Now let's talk about the cutoff. The cutoff is quite achievable. It's just 15 marks for the general category and 12 marks for the reservation. So that means overall cutoff of 138. Remember, for the general category, out of that, if you score 15 marks, you are considered, or you are on for the further consideration, and 12 mark is the sectional cutoff for the reservation. So that is the minimum that you try to get while attempting questions or focusing on your strength. So make sure that in these many days you focus on those kind of questions that can fetch you at least these many marks. And guys, now let's talk about what kind of questions are going to be asked or usually asked in IIFT examination. Now guys, IIFT examination, just like many examination, is usually dominated by the arithmetic section. So focus on arithmetic questions and geometry. Now guys, there are usually two types of questions asked. It's around 6 to 7 questions on geometry and 13 to 14 questions out of 25 on arithmetic. Of course, modern math, number system, remaining number of questions are covered by these topics, but then you can easily make the cut if you focus on arithmetic and geometry. So for these many days, try to plug the gaps in geometry and arithmetic. Try to be strong in these core areas and try to get the cutoff at least 15 marks. That is the score you must get to be considered for the overall cutoff. Now the most important part, though the number of questions are the least, is 20 GK. Now guys, GK people do not pay attention, but it is important. Why? Because you need to get the sectional cutoff, because there is a sectional cutoff. Maybe you scored brilliantly in verbal, quant, DILR, but you didn't make the cut in GK, so you won't be considered. There is a sectional cutoff in IIFT examination. So under the GK, there are 20 questions, and if you get 5 marks, 1.5 mark are going to be awarded to you for every right attempt. So out of 20, if you get 20 questions, if you get 5 marks, I'm not talking about the number of questions, but the number of marks. So out of 20 questions, if somehow you get 5 marks, you are there, you are in the race, but that is not the way to make the cutoff, the overall cutoff. Remember guys, in IIFT examination, not just you have to make the sectional cutoff, you have to clear the overall cutoff also, that I've mentioned in the video earlier. However, these are the sectional cutoff, and you must target these many questions, so that these many marks, so that you are considered for the overall cutoff. Now guys, in GK section, now GK section is usually you'll be getting most of the question, more than 2/3 of the questions, or around 15 questions, 14 to 15 questions is going to be on your current GK, what is happening currently. So whatever important events have happened in the past 2 years, you can go on Google, you can search about the important events. I'm sure if you are preparing for the IIFT examination, somewhere you're keeping a check on GK section 2. So whatever has happened in this last 2 years, the important events, the important, you can say important events of these last 2 years is going to definitely help you to get many questions right out of those 14 to 15 questions, and 6 questions are going to be on something happened in the history. So not just I've explained you how the examination is, but how to prepare for this examination in last 2 weeks or so that you make the cut. Remember guys, focus on your strength. Do not try to do anything new. Okay, try to get the sectional cutoff, and while attempting mock, analyzing the mock is also of utmost importance. Somehow you do or you make sure that you are making not just the overall cutoff but also the sectional one. First you target the sectional cutoff, then you focus on your overall raw score, because in IIFT examination that's what you have to keep in mind. I hope this video will help you to make sure that you push the envelope of performance, or you make your performance better in upcoming IIFT examination on 24th of January. Best of luck, and I'm sure you're going to do